This is part 27 of refurbishing a vintage model steamboat, and there aren't many episodes to go now, probably another 2 or 3, and I'm not enjoying this episode very much. It's cleaning up and re-drilling the holes in the brass strip that runs all the way around the boat. Most of the brass stanchions around the stern area of the boat were irreparably damaged. They were badly broken and had been re-glued at various times, and the whole assembly was ready to fall off. So I just helped it along and it fell off very well. And what I'm left with are the remains of the broken stanchions, and these need to be removed before I can go any further. So what I have to do is drill these out. But before I can do that on some of them, I have to flatten off the remains of glue and other attempts at repairs. I'm doing this with a small drum sander, being very careful not to take too much metal away, and being very careful that the drum sander doesn't slip and run around the hull on the outside. In reality, I like messing around with steam engines. I do not like building boats in the slightest, especially scale boats. I've built and rebuilt 1 or 2 of them, but when it gets down to this, I'm not really happy. I'm not complaining. I am not complaining. But it's incredibly tedious, very, very boring, and the worst part about it is that I know that once I've done this repair, at some future time someone is going to accidentally catch the new handrail and it will start the process all over again. In previous episodes I've mentioned about reinforcing parts of the deck and the hull itself, and if you look at the part I'm working on at the moment, you can see that it's loose. This brass strip that goes around the entire edge of the boat in places is quite loose, and there's nothing really for it to stick to. It was originally soldered, but that's long gone, so I'm going to have to use some very, very thin milliput to tighten this up. I will of course be initially sticking it in place with some cyanoacrylate adhesive. But just using cyanoacrylate adhesive on its own is not good because it's fairly brittle and it will give way after a period of time. Milliput, on the other hand, gives a really permanent and very strong repair. I explain in detail about the use of milliput in previous episodes, so I'm not going to go into detail here. It is a 2-pack epoxy putty, and if you want to know some more about milliput, please Google it. I'm purposely running this clip in real time. It's not speeded up. I don't think it is anyway. No, it's definitely not speeded up. And you can see how tedious and how boring it is, and how you have to be very, very careful with something abrasive rotating very rapidly near a model boat. I'm of course going to have to repaint all this brass strip around the edge of the boat, so I need to match the colour. It's some sort of brown, and I would guess that it is a Humbrol product. The inner part of the deck is like red primer, so I'll get another tin of Humbrol, which is a red primer colour. I suppose I could use ordinary red primer, but this is not a good idea because it is a primer and is designed to be used as an undercoat underneath a top coat. So if I just use the undercoat primer, the problem I'm going to have, particularly with the steamboat, is every spot of oil will stain the primer, and this is not going to look very good. So what I need to look for is a tin of paint that is a primer colour but really has a satin finish. That would be ideal. In a couple of places the original holes in this brass strip have been drilled in the wrong place, so I'm trying to correct this and it's proving difficult. I'm attempting to drill another hole very close to the original hole with my small minicraft drill without breaking through into the original hole, and without either breaking the drill or the drill slipping and sliding about all over the side of the boat. Eventually I persuaded this small drill bit to drill a hole in the centre of the brass strip, which is far better than the original that was miles out. And here I'm sticking down the brass strip where it had lifted using some cyanoacrylate adhesive. Then I will further reinforce the joint by using some milliput, as I mentioned earlier. A plastic spring clamp will hold the part in place until the adhesive has set. What I'm about to do now is fill in the hole that I don't require. This is on the other side of the brass strip, not the one I've just been working on. And for this I'm using some knifing putty. As you can see, it says on the tube, knifing putty. And it's a cellulose-based compound, and it's a very fine filler. Normally you wouldn't use it in place of filler. You would use it to skin cataloy paste or normal body filler to get a very fine finish. In this case, I'm just filling this hole. And what I'll do is just rub it with some sandpaper, and once it's all painted in, everything will be fine. And I'm currently trying really hard not to fill both of the holes, including the one that I've only just drilled. Before anyone sends me a message or a comment saying, "Oh, the holes are a bit big for the stanchions," yes they are, but that is not the case. The stanchions are a bit small for the holes. But as they're going to be fitted in place with some epoxy resin, it doesn't really matter. These are a couple of the original stanchions. I put them in the lathe and turned them down, and I'm tapping them into a hole with a little bit of cyanoacrylate adhesive. I like to use the original ones where possible, but it really was not possible to use any of the stern ones because 95% of them were broken. Just keep watching, you'll see that at the end everything looks fine. They do of course have to be painted. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching and I hope you found it useful.